Hello and welcome to the 11th Annual Canadian Science Policy Conference. My name is Shweta Ganapati, and we have the pleasure of having with us Mr. Daryl Copeland, former diplomat, fellow Canadian Global Affairs Institute and University of Montreal Centre for International Studies and Research, and the author of Guerrilla Diplomacy, Rethinking International Relations. Welcome, Daryl.
Good morning, Shweta.
So, Daryl, the words science and diplomacy are rarely found in a sentence together, but you have written a whole book about it. So tell us, what is science diplomacy and why is there an urgent need for governments and other organizations to direct their focus to it?
Thank you for the question because it really gets at the heart of the issue. Science diplomacy, I think the best definition is using science and technology, research and development, and innovation in order to advance international relations. If you look at the most profound threats and challenges that are imperiling life on the planet at the moment, one thing jumps out at you, and that is that there is a very large S&T content or dimension in climate change, in diminishing biodiversity, in environmental collapse, pandemic disease, weapons of mass destruction, really you name it. And yet the majority of governments most everywhere are continuing to pour the lion's share of international policy resources into the military. And what struck me as I was doing the research for the book was that there really are no military solutions to the problems which may, if you believe the advice of 25,000 of the world's best scientists, impel us towards some tipping point beyond which recovery will be difficult, if not impossible. So by combining science and diplomacy, so the political agency of diplomacy with the evidence-based knowledge creation dimension of science, you have a winning formula which can be used to address this set of very wicked global issues.
So what you've just spoken about also, draws our attention to the need for training the next generation of diplomats and practitioners in this sort of new landscape of science diplomacy. So tell us, Daryl, about your endeavors in this direction of training the next generation and the association with the Canadian Science Policy Centre.
Sure, love to. The current crop of policymakers and decision leaders really haven't seemed to have made this association between science, diplomacy, and these transnational issues which cut all ways. They're very good at resolving territorial disputes, at ideological competition, at a lot of the more traditional security issues. But this new threat set is something which they've had a great deal of difficulty wrapping their minds around, and hence there's been underperformance across the board. That's why I've focused my efforts on trying to advocate among the next generation of leaders the importance of these issues, and the way that I've done it is through writing. Besides the book, I think I've done about 14 book chapters in other books and around 200 articles, a lot of public speaking, a lot of conferences, and a lot of teaching at universities. So I do a course called Science, Technology, Diplomacy, and International Policy, and teach it at diplomatic training institutes and universities around the world. I partnered up with the Science Policy Center for the first time back in about 2010. And I've been to many of these events, and I've been struck by something which makes them very special, and that is that they bring together the science and technology practitioners and the policy formulation community. That's very rare, very precious, and very beautiful. There's also an extremely good representation of youth at these conferences. So strategically, it has always struck me that this is a critical inflection point for promoting the idea that science and diplomacy have got to be spending a lot more time together.
So on that note, I would like to announce to our viewers that the Canadian Science Policy Centre has partnered with Daryl Copeland, and we have a new series of professional development workshops. And the workshop on science diplomacy will, of course, be led by Daryl here. And if you would like to learn more about this and about how you can organize these workshops at your institution, please email us at info@sciencepolicy.ca. And finally, Daryl, you as you mentioned, you're a veteran. You've been at these conferences through the decade. This year, what stands out to you? What are some conversations that really drew your interest and attention?
The incorporation of an appreciation of the importance of Indigenous knowledge, which is critical but often overlooked. The highly innovative approach to the design of a number of the panels. For example, I'd never participated in one of these fishbowl type arrangements, and I found that extremely effective. And finally, just as the popularity of this enterprise grows in terms of both attendance, sponsorship, and acknowledgement among the broader community, it's just made this a must-do annual event.
You heard it from Daryl himself. Thank you very much, Daryl. It was
Great
a pleasure
Shweta,
to have you with.
And I look forward to the next time.
Yes, absolutely.